Deep in the rugged mountains of the Iran-Iraq border, a new front is opening. It's a front that could fundamentally change the map of the Middle East and drag the United States into a massive, shadowy ground war. Right now, fighters from several Iranian Kurdish groups are massing at the border. They are armed, they are organized, and they are preparing for a massive ground offensive directly into northwestern Iran. But this isn't just a localized rebellion. According to American and Israeli intelligence sources, as well as representatives on the ground, this is a highly coordinated operation. The goal? To destabilize the Iranian regime from the inside out. The plan originated with Israel, but today, the CIA is deeply involved. With a U.S. and Israeli air campaign actively underway, these Kurdish fighters are waiting for one thing: a green light from Washington, D.C. to launch their ground invasion. If successful, this could spark an internal revolution that topples Tehran. But experts are sounding the alarm. Are these fighters the tip of the spear, or are they about to become cannon fodder in a war between superpowers? President Donald Trump has already weighed in, stating he is all for the offensive. Yet he stopped short of promising the one thing these fighters desperately need: American air cover. Today, we're breaking down the covert strategy to breach the Iran-Iraq border, the geopolitics at play, and what this means for the United States, Israel, and the future of the Islamic Republic. Title card: The Iran-Iraq border is breached. Special forces destabilize Iran. Act 1. The Alliance and the Strategy. To understand how we got here, we have to look to the origins of this operation, and to do that, we look to Israel. For decades, Israel and Iran have engaged in a shadow war, but a full-scale ground invasion of Iran by Israeli or American forces would be a logistical nightmare and politically deeply unpopular back home in the U.S. So a new strategy was born: unconventional warfare. The idea to enlist the Kurds in the fight against Tehran originally came from Israel. The Israelis approached Kurdish tribes with a very enticing promise: political support for their cause, and potentially greater autonomy if the Iranian regime falls. But Israel couldn't do this alone. Enter the United States. The CIA subsequently joined the operation, transforming it from a regional proxy alliance into a major geopolitical maneuver. Right now, Kurdish groups have thousands of fighters stationed along the porous, mountainous Iran-Iraq border. Over the last few weeks, this has escalated dramatically. Hundreds of fighters have been deployed from their rear bases directly to the front lines facing Iran. They have successfully taken control of highly strategic areas, locking down infiltration routes. So what is the actual military strategy here? According to American sources, the objective is twofold. First, as the U.S. and Israeli air forces conduct an aggressive bombing campaign against Iranian targets, the Kurdish ground forces will advance into northwestern Iran. Their job is to occupy specific strategic territories. On-screen graphics show the logos of the CIA and the Mossad connecting to Kurdish territories on a map. Once they hold this territory, the second phase begins. American intelligence hopes that a successful Kurdish offensive will act as a catalyst. The goal is to spur a massive internal uprising within Iran. They want the Iranian public, already exhausted by the regime, to see the breach in the border and rise up from within, forcing the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, the IRGC, to fight a war on two fronts. But warfare on paper rarely matches warfare in reality, and some military analysts in Washington are incredibly worried. While the Kurds are fierce, battle-hardened fighters, experts warn they simply do not have the heavy armor, the mechanized infantry, or the sheer numbers to take on the full weight of the Iranian military head-on. Without absolute guarantees of protection, there is a very real fear that these U.S.-backed Kurdish forces risk becoming, in the words of experts, cannon fodder in a war between superpowers. Despite the buildup, the invasion hasn't officially launched. The thousands of troops on the border have their rifles loaded, but they are holding their positions. Why? They are waiting on Washington. The Secretary General of the League of Kurdish Opposition Forces recently confirmed to the press that the formal offensive is on pause. A final decision to cross the border and engage Iranian ground forces is awaiting a definitive green light from the United States. This puts the U.S. in a fascinating and highly dangerous position. Let's talk about the Iranian reaction, because Tehran is not sitting idly by. They are actively taking stock of the situation, and they are putting immense pressure on their neighbor, Iraq. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi recently held urgent talks with the Iraqi Prime Minister, discussing the immediate threat of this invasion. Remember, these Iranian Kurdish fighters are currently based in the autonomous region of Iraqi Kurdistan. The Iraqi government is caught in the middle. Baghdad has officially stated that it will not allow a threat to originate from its territory. But the reality on the ground in Iraqi Kurdistan is that Baghdad has very little control over these remote, mountainous border regions. And while the ground invasion waits for the U.S. green light, the air war is already devastating the region. Since the beginning of the broader war, the Israeli Air Force has been relentless. They have repeatedly struck military positions within Kurdish territory and decimated Iranian bases. The kinetic action is already bleeding over the border. According to Iranian media reports, the Iranian city of Bukhan, a heavily Kurdish-populated city in northwestern Iran, is currently under heavy artillery fire. The regime is cracking down, preemptively striking areas they believe could welcome the Kurdish fighters. The situation is a geopolitical powder keg. Kurdish forces are refining their logistics, preparing for what they hope will be seamless coordination with U.S. and Israeli special operations. The ground war is postponed for now, but the region is being monitored 24/7 by satellites, drones, and special forces on the ground. So, where does the U.S. Commander-in-Chief stand on all of this? U.S. President Donald Trump has made his position remarkably clear, but with a catch that could define the fate of the Kurdish fighters. In an exclusive interview with the news agency Reuters, Trump stated that he would absolutely approve of an offensive by Iranian Kurdish fighters into Iran to support the U.S.-Israeli war effort against the Islamic Republic. Quote, "I think it's wonderful that they want to do that. I'd be all for it," the president said. But in geopolitics, what a president doesn't say is often just as important as what they do say. When pressed by reporters, Trump pointedly declined to say whether the United States would provide air cover to these Kurdish forces once they cross the border. For the Kurds, this is a massive gamble. Moving into open territory in Iran without U.S. fighter jets and drones protecting them from Iranian airstrikes and artillery is incredibly dangerous. And Iran is already retaliating. Since the U.S. and Israel formally launched this war over the weekend, Tehran has been aggressively striking Iranian Kurdish groups based in Iraqi Kurdistan. Iran justifies these strikes by accusing the Kurds of acting as mercenaries, serving Western and Israeli interests rather than their own. This brings us to a crucial piece of the puzzle. Who exactly are the Iranian Kurds? For American audiences, you're likely familiar with the Kurds in Iraq and Syria, the forces who partnered with the U.S. to defeat ISIS. But the dynamic in Iran is different. Historically, Iranian Kurds have actually had less friction with the Iranian state than their brethren have with the governments in Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. The cultural and linguistic ties between Persians and Kurds are deep. However, several Iranian Kurdish groups have taken up arms, fighting for greater autonomy within Iran. They form some of the very rare, highly organized armed opposition groups to the Islamic Republic. But their fight for autonomy is highly controversial, not just to the Ayatollahs, but to other Iranian opposition groups. For example, Iranian monarchists and nationalist groups who want to overthrow the current regime are strictly opposed to the Kurds. Why? Because the nationalists insist on Iran's absolute territorial integrity. They fear that giving the Kurds autonomy will lead to the fracturing and division of the Iranian nation.
This internal division in Iran is exactly what the US and Israel are trying to exploit. Military experts suggest that the real value of the Kurdish fighters might not just be in taking and holding territory. Their greatest asset to the US and Israel is their intimate knowledge of the terrain and the local populace. Experts tell us that these Kurdish fighters are the perfect vanguard. They can guide CIA operatives, Israeli Mossad, and Tier 1 special forces deep into Iranian territory. By blending in, speaking the language, and utilizing ancient smuggling routes through the mountains, the Kurds can help Western special forces infiltrate Iran to sabotage nuclear facilities, sever IRGC communication lines, and destabilize the regime from the inside out. The pieces are all on the board. The Israeli Air Force is softening the targets. The CIA is coordinating the logistics. Thousands of Kurdish fighters are massed on the border, holding their breath. Iran is raining artillery on cities like Buchan to suppress the threat. And in Washington, the president is watching, waiting to give the green light. Will the U.S. provide the air cover these fighters need to survive? Will the invasion trigger a massive popular uprising in Iran, or will it rally the Iranian people around the flag to defend their homeland from foreign invasion? If the border is breached, there is no turning back. It will trigger a chain reaction that will not only reshape the Middle East, but deeply entangle the U.S. military for years to come. We are watching history unfold in real time. The decisions made in the coming days by the U.S., Israel, and the Kurdish leadership will dictate the future of the region. We will continue to monitor the Iran-Iraq border, the strikes in Buchan, and the political maneuvers in Washington. What do you think? Should the United States give the green light and provide air support for this Kurdish ground offensive? Or is the U.S. walking into another massive, unpredictable conflict in the Middle East? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this analysis helpful in understanding the complexities of this new war, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our urgent updates on this developing situation. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.